Inspired by the famous radio program Angkhan Khlumpong, Terror Tuesday Extreme, in a recent Netflix series that takes us on a roller coaster ride in the world of horror. Ranging from stories of creepy little dolls to haunted family secrets, this Thai series has weaved 8 real-life experiences together in the form of one neatly packed horror show. While this series has a whole lot to offer, today we're going to focus on one of the most terrifying stories, Our Little Sister. While this may seem like a real-life account of a woman coping with grief, the story soon takes a dark turn when we come across a haunted doll with a mind of its own. So buckle up and get ready to dive right into this supernatural psychological horror as we explore the infamous Elle Doll. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Overview of Terror Tuesday Extreme and the Elle Doll. The show Terror Tuesday Extreme is inspired by a Thai radio show, which has garnered even more fans ever since Netflix released this 8-part series that recounts some of the show's most spine-chilling stories. While horror content has a way of leaving goosebumps on our skin no matter what medium it's presented in, Netflix has visualized these stories with some fantastic practical effects and set designs that have only added to their eeriness. The first episode, My Little Sister, starts on a tragic note on the site of a gruesome car accident. While our protagonist, I, regains consciousness after being badly injured, she immediately checks the rest of the car for her mother and her sister, Elle. Much to her horror, she finds Elle stumbling across the street, and I barely has time to call out for her when a speeding car crashes into Elle and leaves her dead. As the opening credits roll, I seeks the help of a therapist to deal with her nightmares as she struggles to come to terms with her sister's death. In fact, I starts blaming herself for the incident and questions if she will ever fully heal from the trauma. Her PTSD starts affecting her work as well, while her mother takes a different approach to cope with her daughter's death. While I relies on medication to regulate her emotions, her mother seems to be falling into a more depressive state as she throws away her medications and even breaks into tears during day-to-day activities. As time passes, her mother eventually finds some solace in the company of a Khlumpong doll, or the Elle Doll. The doll has been created to serve as an exact replica of her dead daughter, and her mother hoped that it would give her some solace. She seems to have procured the doll through a master, who has laid out a bunch of rules that must be followed with regards to the doll. To begin with, the doll must be fed 3 full meals every day, and she must also be kept back in her box before midnight. Moreover, the master puts up a red string around the borders of the house and warns them against taking the doll anywhere beyond the sacred string, at the risk of breaking the binding spell. When A's mother starts treating the doll as her lost daughter, and even lays out meals for her, I complains about the situation to her friend Toom, who reassures her that the accident was not her fault. She seems quite occupied with this video call when strange things happen around the house, and the lights flicker briefly before things return to normal. While I has her back to the door, the audience catches a glimpse of the Elle Doll lurking around her bedroom before disappearing into nothingness. I also seems to sense something strange, and she leaves her room when she hears her mother talking to the doll. Soon she discovers the television static and walks into the living room, where the doll rests on the couch and stares at the screen with an unsettling smile on her face. I soon switches the television off, and she's horrified as the doll briefly turns her neck and smiles at her in an unsettling manner. Soon enough, her mother sneaks up on I and scolds her for turning the television off before once again talking to the doll as if it was Elle. While I has a hard time understanding why her mother's gotten so attached to the doll, her friend helps her understand that everyone heals differently and that there's a chance the doll might be making her happy. In an attempt to understand the situation better, I decides to open the doll case past midnight and watches in sheer horror as the doll turns into a live version of her dead sister. Moreover, Elle hugs her hard and tells her that she misses them very much, before grabbing onto her body and claiming that she always hated her. Elle soon starts blaming I for the accident, and even goes as far as to declare that the mother never loved her. While I starts panicking, this undead version of Elle reveals that she is her mother's favorite, while I always preferred their dad over her. As it turns out, their dad had uprooted the family to settle down with another woman, and the incident left such a sour taste in their mother's mouth that she couldn't even love I wholeheartedly ever again. While I pushes the doll away, the undead Elle soon starts panicking and asks for help while blood splotches from the accident reappear on her body. The entire situation seems too much for I, but the screen briefly turns dark before we learn that this could just have been one of I's unhinged nightmares, blurring the lines between reality and dreams. This show keeps us on the edge of our toes as it builds up to a finale. As the scene shifts back to I, she notices that her parrot, Jib Jib, has gotten out of its cage, and she tries to ask her mother about it, with very little help. Soon enough, she glances at the trash and notices that her mother has thrown away her medicines once again. and she decides to confront her. However, her mother only snaps at her and said that she is fully recovered before returning to make more food for the doll. As things seem to be going too far, Ai grabs the Elle doll into the yard with the intention of throwing it beyond the sacred threshold, but this only results in a fight with her mother. The altercation ends with the doll's clothes tearing up, and Ai briefly glimpses a naked doll's torso, which seems to be covered in strange incantations and symbols. On the other hand, their mother stitches the doll's clothes up and talks about how they don't need Ai, and can very well get rid of her. Given the intensity of the situation, Ai decides to pack her bag and leave the house when her mother corners her and stuffs her face with chloroform. As the young girl regains consciousness, she finds herself tied to a chair on the dining table, with the Elle doll staring right at her. Their mother soon enters the room and starts serving dinner as though everything is normal, and even goes as far as to force feed Ai. As the movie inches closer to its finale, things only get worse for Ai as her mother brings up her father once again and talks about how she was closer to him. However, her mother seems determined to bring the family together, and she soon starts talking about executing the Elle doll's plan. She returns with a bottle of insecticide and proposes that they both consume it and die so that Elle wouldn't have to be lonely in the afterlife. In a crazy turn of events, Ai's mother gulps down the insecticide in one go before forcing the liquid down Ai's throat as well. She tries to protest against it and even pushes the glass away, but this only worsens things as the liquid catches fire in the kitchen. While Ai manages to run away, her mother picks up a kitchen knife to kill her with when the insecticide kicks in and kills her first. Ai helplessly watches as her mother apologizes for everything and claims that the doll made her do it. After realizing she's all alone, Ai decides to take the doll beyond the house's threshold to get rid of her when a satanic creature creeps up on her, and the screen goes dark yet again. Climax and Resolution. As we finally approach the last few minutes of the film, we enter a dream sequence as Ai relives many happy memories with her mother and sister. However, things soon take a strange turn as the demonic entity continues to choke her to death when her mother somehow returns to life to get rid of him. As Ai finally gets up, she looks around to find the Elle doll as well as her mother's dying body, and all lines between imagination and reality are finally blurred as we cannot tell the two apart anymore. There seems to be a lot more going on than what meets the eye, and Ai's mother tells her to get the Elle doll out of the house as soon as possible. As she rushes out with the doll, Ai crosses the sacred threshold and once again finds her back in her dreams. In this dream, Ai's sister hugs and tells her to forgive herself, while their mother looks at them lovingly. She further realizes that she seems to have suffered no real injuries even after the altercation with her mother, and she lies down in the backyard with the Elle doll to her left. In a spine-chilling turn of events, A looks to her right in utter horror and sees another Khlumpong doll, a replica of her mother. Things take quite an unexpected twist as Ai comes to terms with her PTSD symptoms and realizes that she has lost her mother and sister in the accident. Furthermore, it was Ai who had been constantly throwing her medicines away, and her PTSD worsened to the point where she forgot all about her mother's death and started believing that she was still with her. In a flashback, Ai consults with her therapist, who reminds her that her mother has passed away when Ai tries to make a case for herself by telling them about her friend Tomb. However, he also seems to be an imaginary friend she's conjured up in order to deal with the grief, and all of these things come together as Ai lies next to the two dolls in her yard. She reassures herself that everyone finds different ways to heal, and we see several shots of Ai cooking for all three of them, and then breaking down when she realizes that they're not around. It was Ai who had looked up ways to bring back the dead and eventually stumbled upon these dolls, which gave her some hope. However, all these things come crashing down as Ai finally realizes the extremity of her actions and completely breaks down as she processes things. With the dolls next to her, Ai cries uncontrollably as she finally comes to terms with their deaths, and the rain pours down on her as the credits start rolling. The doll as a symbol and an entity. As the story starts, one might be under the belief that the doll might be a terrorizing entity, just like most horror cliches such as Annabelle or Chucky. In fact, it might even seem like the doll is powered by dark forces of nature, and that she might bring about death and destruction in Ai's household. However, we soon understand that the doll merely projected Ai's feeble mental state. It's essentially a manifestation of Ai's grief and guilt, and her mother's doll soon supports this theory as we get a deeper look at Ai's mental state. The Elle doll was Ai's way of coping with grief and relieving herself of guilt she felt in the aftermath of the accident, and her imaginary world soon crumbles before her own eyes at the climax. Marvelous verdict. To wrap things up, we can conclude that the doll was not a supernatural entity, but the creators certainly did a commendable job of keeping us on our toes until the very end. The episode is filled with spine-chilling jump scares, but at the same time, it depicts grief and mourning in a heart-wrenching manner. Our Little Sister was the perfect start to this series, and we hope you stick around as we come back with many more videos on Terror Tuesday Extreme. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.